Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Tree Actions, the Human Forestry Podcast. And with me, as always, is my trusted counterpart, Tony. Morning, Tony.
Good morning, everyone.
And joining us from almost in Canada, up and way in northern Montana, longtime friend, and excited to have him on the show, Mr. Jared Abrojena. How's it going, Jared?
Hey, doing well. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, I've always find it fun when we have other podcasters on the show. So, and those of you that if you don't know, you probably do. But what's the podcast, Jared? You got
Two Tree Guys podcast.
Two Tree Guys. Yeah. So Jared, so we got one of the Two Tree Guys.
One of the Two Tree Guys, and to be honest, I was like half of the tree guy on that podcast. I didn't do much on it, and so technically that's Phil's baby, and that whole story of how it started was funny, and I was supposed to be the first guest on a podcast that he wanted to start, and okay. I go, I just don't believe this was years ago. It's like, I don't know about that. I don't know if this is going to work, man. He was like, we should just do our own. And I'm like, okay, well, let's see what it takes, And we started one. And at the time, I didn't listen to podcasts. And I'm like, who listens to these things? I'm not into this. Who's going to listen to a bunch of stupid tree guys sitting here talking about stuff? And we did one. And I was like, that's pretty fun. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it kind of it grew from there. And it was originally called Two Tree Guys and a Bucket of Beer. And every episode, we had a new brewery donate a new beer, and we talk about the beer, and we call them our sponsors, and they weren't our sponsors. We went and bought the beer down at some local little pub, right? And try to make it something it wasn't. But it was more so just, two guys that just love the industry, talking about things we liked, and what had nothing to do with really tree-related things. It was just things that tree people like, we like to go fishing, we like to be outdoors, we like to go hunt, we like to be out in nature, do cool stuff. And we like barbecuing and food, and that was our goal, is to dive down this avenue. And then sure as hell, it went straight back into tree industry talk, and that's all it became, So it's just funny how things morph. So when I hear people doing podcasts, I'm like, I love it. I want to hear more. Like, it's going to grow into random. And I love the fact that you guys are so open to, wherever it goes, we just talk and, things happen. Yeah. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that sounds pretty familiar. Hey, Tony, pretty similar to our journey.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like we thought, cause like a friend of mine, Tim Reynolds, like he just, a couple years ago, he's like, dude, I just really want to do a podcast. Like, let's do it. I'm like, yeah, sure. And so we did. And then we had Dwayne on as a guest. And he's like, man, that was great. And then his wheels start turning. He's like, let's do a podcast to reconnect with the old ARBCAN instructors. And then it morphs into this. And then, it's been, and it's got a thing, like I'm saying, like, who wants to hear a bunch of old tree guys, tell stories? But, I tell you, who does? Me. I want to hear it. So, I found it with creative endeavors. I just do the things that I would enjoy being, hearing. And if somebody else likes it, great. If not, then I've satisfied my own, creative endeavors. It's fine.
And that's why we do it. Phil, my business partner, he makes a great point. He's like, this stuff that lives forever. When we're dead and gone and passed on, this stuff's, it's gold. Everything that's in our head and all these stories and all these conversations, it's a legacy that gets left behind for not only our family, that can go back and listen to and see us again, but it's for generations past in the industry to see. And that clicked for me. I'm like, now I'm doing it for a reason, not just to hear myself talk, it's much more than that. Yeah. So I think that's cool.
When we had Don Blair on the show, it was afterwards. I don't think he said it in the session, but he said, Dwayne, when an old guy like us dies, the library burns down.
Yep. Yeah.
And I was like, that's true. Pretty cool. And he said, he says, what you're doing is good because you're capturing some of the history and some of the stories. And he says, so it gets out there, right? And any of this stuff, it's exactly what it is. Yeah. And and we've been we've had some guests on that have, passed away subsequently. I don't think it's a trend, so don't worry.
Yeah.
But
Most of our guests are still alive.
and there's been people that have gone and they get some comfort and, then go listen to them talk, right? They can easily go find a place and just get their voice, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
especially, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking of, we're talking about, the library that burns. One person that's making moves is, if you heard of Simeon, he's from the UK. He's the visual climber, but he's doing a podcast out there as well. But
Okay.
he's creating a really cool documentary. And if you haven't linked up, you two would be incredible value to this documentary of input. But he's traveling around the world, going back to all the manufacturers of, getting these stories of 20, 30 years ago and products and just people that have been around forever and just pulling bits and pieces, and he's putting this amazing documentary together, and it's mainly for that reason. So just awakening our industry now, this new generation that doesn't know the roots behind it, that doesn't know how it started. And I mean, gosh, you two alone, the stories behind some of the products, and people don't know. They don't know, and I think that's good for this generation to have maybe a little bit more respect of. I know it has for me, but I've been around it my whole life. I don't know anything different. But I have a lot of respect for more people in the industry knowing what they've really done. So
no, it's true. And we're at that. I think there is that. I'll have to shoot me his contact and check it out. Well, we've already deviated from the norm, which is great. And but we do ask everyone one question to get us started, but we've already got started, and that's okay. But I am curious, as a generational arborist, what the question is, could you share with us your first memory, the first memory that comes to mind where you felt a connection to a tree or trees?
Ooh, that's a big one. I'm gonna have to scroll back into my childhood days. Oh yeah, it started so young. I started climbing at 8 years old with my dad. So, I think the connection wasn't directly in trees. It wasn't about climbing the trees. It was about the time with my father. And it was about seeing a passion in him that I maybe didn't recognize back then. But I was like, man, my dad really loves this, but my dad was my hero. So it was like, whatever he did, I wanted to do, and I think that grew into a passion and kind of morphed from there. But, him taking me on, rec climbs as a kid and being on job sites, I think, a few moments that really stick out in my brain, and there's a few of them. One was when we climbed our first 200 plus 200 foot plus tree recreationally. That was a moment, and I was maybe 12, 13 years old, and just being able to let the guard down and have the trust and do that with my dad, and sit at the very tops above the canopy. That was a very special, and that's kind of got me to the point of releasing that fear of like, if today's my day, it's my day, but I can't worry about it. I gotta push through it, and we get that a lot in this industry. That's part of what we do, and make that cut. Like, well, a lot could go wrong, and but anyhow, there's that, and then another one was my first removal was a redwood tree. I had to rig out, and first time on hooks, and I'm up there with the chainsaw aloft, and back then there wasn't much training. It was to be honest, I didn't have any training as a kid. My dad gave me a chainsaw and showed me how to run it. I figured it out, but that was a pretty cool moment for me. And like I said, I don't want to say it was like a direct connection of like, oh man, I'm love trees. So it's more so like, man, I love work. Like I love work. I love the hardness about this. I love the the intensity and the what if, and and so
Yeah.
that was kind of a turning point for me of like, yep, I can do this. This is where I'm meant to be.
Yeah. Cool.
That
That
was probably around
it,
maybe
you
15
know,
years.
as you were talking, like, wasn't that around the time when you went in your first competition?
Yep. At 15 to 16 years old was my first comp in Southern California. It was
Yeah.
a chapter comp, and you know,
Yeah.
I was nervous, just a young kid, but I trained insanely. I mean, as much as my dad trained, I trained because guess who carried all his bags?
Yeah.
Like, it was me. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
basically had to show up to this little kind of hobo park that we used to train at, and it
Yep.
was like all the homeless were down by this little river, and we had to sneak through a fence, and it was the only 180-foot ukes around us, so it was like, I remember as a kid just being like, I don't know how safe this is, there's, my dad's 100 something feet in the air, and I'm on the ground kind of checking my back, like, I'm going to get mugged out here. But yeah, the training was intense. My dad trained a lot. Therefore, if he did an 80-foot speed belay, I'm like, I want to try, let me do it. So I was right there behind him. But yeah, it was a
Wow.
good era.
That was I don't, you probably don't remember, but it was the first time I had been to Western Chapter. I think, I don't know, it wasn't the first time I'd been to California, I don't think, maybe, but I hadn't been there much. And Rip and I pruned the work climb. Rip and I and Sam Noonan, we were there setting up, and it was the day before, and it was a banyan tree.
Yep.
And Rip
Yes.
Rip and I and Sam Noonan pruned that tree and set that climb up. I mean, I was, and then I think I was in Tree Tech because I remember you coming up. Where was I? I remember you being there and climbing. I don't know. And I remember getting all full of banyan sap because it was suckers, and I was supposed to clear this. I think it was a limb walk or something. And they were like, get all those suckers cleared off there, out to there. And they were hard I was ripping them and tugging them, and I was getting sap all over me. And they're like, Sam was laughing at me. And the shit never did come out of the shirt I was wearing. That white sap, they milked the sap
The
that
white
comes out
sap.
of them damn
Yep.
things. And it was
Yeah.
sticky shit, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was your first competition. And I remember,
Yeah.
because I'd already had my kids, and I thought, man, that'd be really awesome. Maybe my son will compete at that young. And DJ they wouldn't let him compete here, because you kind of you sparked like, everyone's like, well, was that legal? Like, is that safe? And now they don't let anyone compete till 18.
Yep. Yep.
That's because of
Yep.
you.
I know. It's because of me. And after that, that's what sparked it even more. Is after that year, they made the rule you had to be 18.
Yeah.
And I was pissed. I was like, man, I got a taste of it, and I came
Right.
in like 10th. And I'm like, oh man, I'm like right there. I'm like, I could do this, and they made me wait 3 years.
Then you had
so
to
I
wait.
trained for 3 years. Yeah, so I'm like, okay, just wait till I come back now. Like, I'm coming back hard, and it was good. It was good. Maybe as being that young, it was probably better for me to, you know, stay out of it for a few more years and try and mature a little bit, which I didn't. But
Yeah. Well, we've all had some delayed reaction in that department.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now you can compete. You can compete under 18. I think it's just you need the parent consent and some waiver
Right.
signed. And so that's
Right.
cool. I think that's cool.
Yeah, because I don't know how many third generation. I know there's lots of third and fourth generation arborists. Well, lots of thirds, lots of seconds, but I don't know how many third generation competitors there's been.
Right. And that have done it in the same era.
Yeah, whereas you're, because you have a son, correct?
Yeah, he's 18.
Yeah, so he could, is he competed?
No. I mean,
Oh, okay.
It crushes me a little bit because he's a phenomenal climber,
Right.
but he doesn't want anything to do with the tree industry. So I'm like, you're good. Go do your thing. Yeah.
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 I didn't know if that has occurred where we've had, grandpa, dad, and son. That'd be kind of wild. Not
Yeah.
necessarily that they all compete together, but that because I think your dad's actually finally retired, hasn't he?
Yeah. He's retired, but we had a good solid, I don't know, maybe 5 years competing, 5 or
Right.
6.
Wow.
Yeah, in the same time frame, and he got me, I think, 2 out of those years. And then after that, I was like, okay, Dad, no more. This ain't happening again. But
That
yeah.
must be quite something, eh? Competing in a tree climbing competition with your dad, and then at that point, it's who's going to win. It's got as much to do with that as the comp, right? It's like
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're
Yeah.
gonna look, you can't help but look at the points, say like, "Well, son, looks like I actually beat ya."
Yeah. Well, the one he got me good I remember this, it was in Sacramento. It was pouring rain and prelims, we're getting through prelims, and basically it was pouring all day, and then we voted. The whole team voted. Do we keep this moving on? It's starting to become unsafe, and so everybody's like, raise your hands if you still want to compete. And like me and my dad are like, we work in this. I'm like, yep. Like, just let's keep rolling. Like, we got an advantage here.
Yeah,
And a lot of the people bowed out. So anyhow, we moved on into the Masters, but anyhow, what happened is this Masters was in a big uke, and that was the big thing. It's slippery and whatnot. So
yeah.
I do my climb, and I think we had like almost 30 minutes, and I get done in like 15 minutes. I absolutely smashed this tree. I pull my rope out with my throw line, and throw line gets stuck. So I throw another throw line to retrieve that. That gets stuck. I throw a third, my last third, all three, everything's stuck. It's just a stuck mess, right? At the end of this climb. So for 15 minutes, I'm messing around. DQ, basically. My dad comes in, smokes the climb. He just looks at me. I'm like, you got me, And that was the last year. I'm like, never again. This ain't happening again, Pop. Yeah, but yeah, good memories. I mean, I miss those days, to be honest. I miss climbing with my dad. I miss working with my dad. We still work every now and then, but I think a lot of my memories over the years of it's just getting down and dirty, and and working with them. But yeah,
Right,
knowing that season has passed is a little tough.
right. Yeah. Well, so is he? He of course he probably can't. Still has to do some tree work, but is he backing off a little?
Yeah. Well, we sold the family business 2 years ago, and
Okay.
which he's still technically like employed, and so he kind of works at will. And when I say works, he'll go out and take care of some of the clients, and still keep those relations going. But
Yeah. Yeah.
he'll still jump in the field every now and then and run a grapple truck, or he'll run my crane every now and then. Or,
Yeah. Yeah.
but he's really into milling right now. He's got a lot of time, so he's just on the Lucas mill, just making timber.
Yeah. You can't stop playing with the wood.
Yeah, that's a tree guy for life right there. But it's
You
pretty.
we call it the Human Forestry Podcast because we got the idea from one of our new instructors. We had a team event, and he made the comment. He says, like, I'm like a sapling standing in this huge forest of old growth kind of thing, and it just got me thinking of this. How there's so much, like a forest, that the older trees supporting the younger trees, and the connections that occur a lot of times unseen, underground, and the root systems, and it, I always ask people or get people's viewpoint on that concept. Like, how has being part of the industry affected you? Not just as an arborist, but as a person in your livelihood, or as with your family. Uh, can you draw? Have you drawn? Do you ever draw lessons or parallels from how trees work with one another to how we work with people, or how you work with people?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, I definitely I mean, this has shaped me just as a human, and I think for everybody, it's obviously very different, and it's how open your mind is. Um, the effect that you do have on others, and how you can pull from that, and give from that, and my vision and mission, just as a person, has always been to affect change. How can I affect change in everything I touch, and
Yeah.
that's my legacy. That's what I leave, is helping people be better, and what can I give to help, and that's, I believe it comes back tenfold, and for me, this industry has been so giving. That's affected me the biggest. And I
Hmm.
didn't recognize that till later on in life, and I look around the people that have supported me. Maybe they didn't even know they were supporting me, but just believing in me and encouraging me and helping me and giving, and that shaped me to who I am today. And I most of these people don't even know. I should probably ring more of them and say thank you. But
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. Nobody really asks for a thank you out of being that person. But what
Right.
can we be underground, undercover, and be able to give and share and support for not only our close ones, but for this industry to grow, because that's what it takes. That's why it is what it is today, because people like you and Tony, and it's we're all out there sharing and giving back. So I truly believe it shaped me to who I am, and it helped me build better vision, mission, and definitely core values of who I am. Right. Uh, but yeah, I think in an overall statement, it's we have a very special industry,
Hmm.
unlike any other industry that gives a lot more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as being part of it for so long, I would have to agree.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it is, but and I do think it has something to do with the, you know, I don't know, working outside, working with nature, obviously pretty directly with trees, but there is something about all that it's a very unique job, like, and especially mature trees, like the, the, I don't know, there's just something about a big old tree, right? Like it's hard to
Mhm.
explain.
Yeah.
What do you think
Yeah.
that is? What is it about a big old tree? Like, is it, how do you, or could you put in words what that is? It's an interesting thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I almost look at it like when you visit the sequoias,
Yeah.
the giants. When you're surrounded by them, it's almost like being around a dinosaur.
Yeah.
Not that I've been around a dinosaur, obviously, but this is prehistoric.
It
This is
is.
something that you cannot fathom.
No.
It's just it's so far beyond you. And if that could tell the story, man, we'd be
Yep.
there for ages listening.
Yep.
And it's just having the open mind to be able to appreciate things like that. And when I
Yeah.
see large trees, that's kind of like, for me, is that I feel that. I can
Yeah.
I can feel the what's special about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge part of it with that, us people that get to work with mature trees, particularly. And then if we're lucky enough to work in the canopies of them, even removing them, there's always a sense. Well, I think for the most part, for most of us, that do that work, there's a sense of, appreciation, I guess would be the word, at least, of the age. That like when you're working on something, or you're involved with something that is way older than you are, or older than you will ever be. There you can't help but somehow give it some sort of reverence, because it's alive. It's living. It might be dying. Might be why you're there, but it's been there way longer than you're going to exist for. And in that, something happens. I think there's something, that we as humans, it's like, okay, well, I can't do that. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's something we know we can't do. We can't be there as long as that oak's going to be there for, or that uke, or whatever tree it is, right? And then even its mass and size, that it's like a power greater than ourselves. There's just, it's
Yeah.
undeniable,
It
right?
is. It's true. It truly is. And that makes me think of just last week or the week prior, I was working with this company, and I'm up in the tree with one of their newer climbers. He maybe has maybe a year or two climbing experience, and these trees are about 150 to 180 feet tall. We get up there, and you can see the nerves kicking in this kid, and it's kind of a little frantic, having a hard time tying knots. And I just had to stop and say, hey, take a minute, look around, and just enjoy this.
Yeah.
Like, look at just look at this view. Look at where we're at. Look what we get to do, and just calm down. We're in a beautiful place. You're safe. We're tied in 3 times in this tree. You're not going anywhere, and I'm right here, and it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. But, moments like that, and I think that came with age and for myself, and, appreciating things a little bit more, just appreciating life a little bit more, um, I've had my spills. I've fallen out of 3 trees. I've hit the ground. I've been tore up, broken out shoulders and whatnot. And you kind of look at things a little different every day after events like that. You go, you know what? It's pretty special. I'm going to take this in right now and just
Yeah.
enjoy it for what it is. But it helped the kid. But oftentimes we get caught up in the grind, and it's production mode, and we become closed-minded to a lot of things and not enjoy life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Or, and that whole enjoying life thing is an interesting journey itself, like what we used to find enjoyment into what we might find enjoyment in now, or realizing, sometimes things that were enjoyable can turn on you and become not so enjoyable.
Yeah.
We don't, like we mentioned, we don't always know where we're going to go. And um, we don't record this live, so we can always make edits. But you and I have had, well, there's a lot of similarities in our stories, but there's one similarity, and that's our path to uh, a different way of living, like making a choice to make some pretty major changes personally in regards to well, let's just say drinking. I guess would be the best way to put it, and different paths that way, but kind of in the same end result, and
Yep.
I've we do it's not a theme of our podcast or anything, but here you and I are, who have a bit of a similar tale there, where we made some realizations and made some changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
What were you willing to share about how that journey's gone for you, how you got there, and
Yeah.
where you
Yeah.
are at now, what happened, what it was like, what it's like today?
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a journey, and I'm going to start this with and kind of go back to a little bit and talk about some of the sacrifices of people like us in the industry, um, what it does to you, and I didn't know any of this, and I started pretty young, traveling and competitions and working with manufacturers, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't even call them trainings at the time. They're just more as a ambassador, and
Yeah. Yeah.
that it starts small, and it's like, okay, I'm going to fly here and do that. I'm going to go out with them for dinner. I'm going to, I got to go learn this from this manufacturer, and it puts you on the road, and you're in this
Yeah.
environment, and you're partying, you're drinking, and you get in this, like, that's what you have to do to survive at that time mentally, especially
Yep.
being young. You get sucked into this,
Yep.
and that's how you make these interactions. That's how you make these deals. That's how you get
Yeah.
things across the finish line, and it's as a trainer or as somebody in positions like us, it's a major sacrifice of your life, and people don't realize, oh man, it must be easy what you do. It's so fun. You just get to go drive around and party, and it's like, yeah, it was for a period of time, but it wears on you and it beats you down.
Yep.
And, and that's what it did to me. It got to the point where it was like tunnel vision of that was my life,
Yeah.
and I couldn't see all the things that it affected around me. I was
Yeah.
blinded by affecting my family and my kids and my business and my friends. And,
Yeah.
I thought people were my friends just because we partied together.
Yeah.
And was I losing face to the industry? I don't know. Did I look back, I'm embarrassed of a lot of the things that I've done or things that I've said, or and I don't like that. I look at it now, and I'm almost shamed a little bit by it, but there's always, second chances, right? It got to the point in my life where it was just like, it wasn't, and this is, I believe, there's higher power to this, and I just wasn't like I was hungover one day and I'm like, oh, I need to quit drinking, or it wasn't like, oh, somebody sat down and said, you need to go to rehab. It just, I woke up one day and I said, I'm tired. I'm tired of being tired. My body hurts every day. My mind hurts every day. I can't think clear. I got a lot of business decisions I have to make, and I can't make those because I'm not there. I'm just, I'm confused. I'm scared. I'm all these things, and I just said, I'm done. I'm taking a break, and I didn't tell anybody. I just told myself, like, I'm just gonna, I was overweight and unhealthy, and a lot of this too, I think, stem a number of reasons. I hit a high point in my life, and high point for me was, family. My business was running well. I started another company, and I won a world championship, and it's like I just felt like that was it. And when I quit all that, I quit, competing, and I quit all the sponsors and people I worked with. And what do you do when you're at the top and you go down? I had nothing to fit. It was a void, right? And the drinking got heavy, and the partying got heavier. It just it was too much for me. So basically I just woke up, made that choice, and the rest was history. And it was rough. I separated myself from a lot of people, basically everybody, to do this. And it showed who was with me and who wasn't. And that was a good thing. And they always say, as you grow, it's like a snake shedding skin. It's like you gotta let go a lot of that past and all the old skin to develop something new. So, and I'm still on that journey. I'm 3 years coming up this September, and best thing I ever did. And I don't preach this to people. I don't promote, oh man, you should quit drinking. I would never do that, because I know that's on your own terms. You can't tell somebody to do something harmless. It's just not gonna happen.
Exactly.
But you got to hit your own bottom to figure it out. But I just try to lead by example, and that's all you can do. But it's the best path of my life so far, and I wish I would have done it 10, 15 years ago. I kicked myself a little bit for that. Like, man, I should have started this sooner. But life's good. And I'm healthier than I've ever been. I lost 30 pounds, and my brain's sharp again, and I'm ready to take on the world. So it's a new phase.
It is amazing, and congratulations. For me, it resonates so much, and I like your intro to it. Like, that really resonated with me, because I, did all that too, it just was, you don't even realize it. Like, I remember joking about it with Rip and Ken a couple of times, and we'd be like, we kind of have this rock star lifestyle, like, like you're going to shows and you're the main attraction, or you're one of the attractions, and then you're going to manufacturers, and you're kind of almost celebrity in this weird little pond, like, but you're getting wined and dined, and rich food, lots of wine, lots of booze. It just was the way it was. You didn't even think about it. And it was so cool and fun, right? And then you get status on airlines, and it's free booze, and it's like you got lounges. And it's like, it's just everywhere. You're like, what the hell? Like, and you don't even think, and it's fun. And then for me, it just started creeping more and more into, and then, there was, changes, like, well, I need to make some changes. So, then for me, it morphed into a private thing. It came out, I was quite controlled in the public sense, or like no one would know except my family, right? And it really started deteriorating me at home, my wife would always say they get the best of you and we get the rest of you. and,
That, that
and I would
my
just
wife
come
says the
home.
same thing.
Really?
Same thing. Same thing.
And I would just be a puddle of a lot of times just drunk. And that, I wouldn't be, I just would just always have to have a little bit in me, and it got to a point where it just caused a lot of problems and expanded into some other habits. And it just, I did have to go get help. I needed more than I couldn't do it. I'd gone either farther or I was just, I don't know what it was for me, and I think that's important for people to realize too, that we're different. And you're absolutely right. There's attraction by promotion. That is it. Like you cannot, or no attraction by example, not promotion. You can't really sell this concept other than showing how your life is different. And but for some of us, there is, you need a little more than just fortitude and stop. And there is and that's okay too. I think that's important for people to understand that if you think you might need to make a change, you should probably, I would recommend paying heed to that little voice in your head, because I listened to it for a long time before I finally did something about it, before I actually listened to it, I guess I could say, before I took action on what I kind of knew I needed to do. And I think if I would have done it like you did, maybe I listened a little sooner, maybe I would have saved myself some money and maybe a little extra pain. But the examples are everywhere around us, right? And if you're thinking, Mark Bridge, we didn't talk about it on his podcast, but he called me afterwards and he said there's a lot of people probably need to hear more of this stuff as far as how you get there and not realizing that it's kind of like boiling that frog analogy, right? Like you don't realize what's happening until almost it's too late, and then it's then getting to the point where you realize you need to do something about it, and accepting or admitting to yourself that I've got to do something. That's a process that each of us go through, and I think however you get there, it's worth doing, and I'd encourage anybody to at least explore the thought. Hey Tony, you haven't go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tony.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna. Tony hasn't weighed in on for a bit, and I know that. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm just sitting here listening. I think it's great. I think it is. The addiction and those types of things is definitely. I mean, it's everywhere. I think it's in tree care. I think just because of the physical nature of the job and the mental stresses that are there. And I just think it is something that definitely needs to be talked about. And you're right, you can't. The only person that can change you is you. But to know that there are a lot of resources out there for you, um, even somewhere in the industry. I know that there's been some people like yourselves who have gone through this that have started different support networks specifically for arborists and stuff because the line of work it's different, right? I always found it's the stress of it that will drive you to it maybe, and then it's also sort of an accepted part of the culture. If you do tree work, well, you must be a hard drinker and a hard partier, right? Like because your job's hard, so you have to play hard, and it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't. There's other outlets, and while I've never suffered from those things, I think I've always been on high alert because I grew up with it. I didn't realize how it affected me as I was growing up, but then as an adult, I did see it. So it's for the same reason I've never smoked a cigarette because I watched my mom smoke for, and it killed her, you know, it did. So I've always been on high alert about it, but I have people, if they ask me for advice in tree work, my main advice is find a way to regulate and manage emotion and stress outside of alcohol. And it's not, and if you're not an addict, if you don't suffer from alcoholism, you don't have addictive tendencies, there's nothing wrong with cracking a cold beer and relaxing a little bit, but have other tools as well. Because if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail. And you'll just keep going at it and you'll just keep going at it. Right. So, and that is something that, like I said, while I haven't suffered from addiction in my own life personally, I've seen it in my family and I've seen it, around and people. And I wish I'd have known that because I think my own health would have been better in the long run. I had to learn some lessons the hard way. Um, I never got to the point where it was, a full born addiction and I needed treatment, fortunately for me, but I could have. There one small decision, one place. Had I not met my wife when I did, I was on a really good path then, but that was a whole nother story. Um, sometimes you meet people in your life that save you from yourself, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was, but yeah, and I encourage people to do that if they're going to get in this industry, and especially if they're like going long haul. Find ways to manage, and it can be anything. It doesn't have to be an hour of meditation a night. It can be anything. It can be. I've talked with tree guys that when they stop and get their morning coffee at the convenience store, they love to just look up and look at the moon, if it's out, and for 2 seconds and think about it. It could be a walk with your kids. It could be anything. Just find a way to do it and make it a habit.
Yeah, I always think too is, the things that we're chasing with all this is, is those endorphins. It's just, and adrenaline's part of it. We're adrenaline junkies.
Mhm.
And that's we chase that, and that's what all that brings to us is it's just getting that dopamine. And
Yep.
there's ways that you can fill that as then that's great. Now I tell people too when they ask me this, and I'm like, what's your, the VMCs, Vision Mission Core values are big on me. And I go back to them all the time because that's what keeps me aligned. I have to stay aligned all the time. Where am I going and how do I get there? Constant, because I'm the type of person, I'm like a squirrel. I can get off track really quick, and so, if it doesn't align and doesn't fit, I'm not doing it, and I tell myself, and I tell other people when they ask, I say, what is your vision? What's your plan? And how are you going to get there? Like, well, I'll do this. I'm like, okay, well, does all this other stuff fit in your life to help you get there? They're like, well, no, it doesn't. Well, guess what? You should probably not do that. And I tell people too is take one thing that you hate the most about yourself and fix that one thing. Just the one thing that you hate the most, right? If you fix that one thing, I guarantee those other 15 will start to shed off with it, because they compound, right? And that, I think that's one thing we fail as humans is it gets so much where we're like, gosh, I got to fix all these things about, I need to be better at this. And then you're like, it's just too much. So you don't do any of it, right? So for me, I just bit the one thing, and that was it. And it was drinking. And, with drinking came partying. With partying came other bad shit, and it just compounded. So that cleaned up 90% of my problems. And it'll never be fixed. Everybody still has issues. I definitely still got issues. I'll tell you that. But, at least I took out the big one.
That reminds me of that song, the Drinking Bone song. The party bone's connected to the hand bone. The hand bone's connected, or connected to the party bone. Right? I can't remember all the words, but it is. And it reminds me of one of the famous recovery programs motto: "One day at a time." Right, and or you could use one thing at a time. It's so easy to overwhelm ourselves. And we just need to focus on, that's why, with a lot of the anonymous fellowships, they talk about one day at a time, because the thought of never again is just too great, right? It's like, what do you mean I can't? Just one day at a time, man. Just one day at a time.
That's it.
And it's how you eat an elephant, right? Just one bite at a time.
100%. Yeah, and that's when I quit. It wasn't like, oh man, I'm quitting forever. I'm just like, man, I just think I'd take a break. And 3 months went by. I'm like, that feels pretty good. 1 year went by. I'm like, this is not bad. And now I'm at the point where I shook it to the point where I'm like, you know what? I don't want to ever have to do this again. I'm good.
Yeah.
But I had a few beers. My son turned 18. And his one wish is he wanted to have his first beer with his dad in London, the real London pub. And so we flew out to London, and I had a beer with him, and it was a great memory. And I was proud of my son for waiting until he was 18 to have his first pint. And so I did that, and I walked away like totally fine. I'm good. I don't need this.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Not that I'm that back.
Yeah. Exactly. And that like a lot of times those experiences will, you how do you put it? Like the benefits so far outweigh the benefits of one so far outweigh the benefits of another, right? And then you can experience it and go, that isn't, for me, I accidentally, we were on vacation and there was my wife ordered like a dessert, a flambe, and they poured rum over it and it burned it, it was a big flame. And I never thought anything of it. And I went to, I had a couple bites and I scooped down on the bottom of the bowl, get a little sauce. And I got sauce all right, but it was like a rum that hadn't burned off. And this is like Aruba rum, right? It's in Aruba. And it was like, wow, like I got this blast, and I hadn't had any alcohol in over 3 years. And it was like, it just shocked me, like the power, the intensity of it. And it was and for me, it was a real visceral reaction of, it represented so much pain for me. I couldn't even enjoy it. I was just like, and my wife got horror in her face. She realized, oh my God, you just, and it wasn't a big deal. It was kind of cool for me because I've heard people say that that's happened to them and they end up loving it so much they go back to drinking, right? It's like, and they end up down the rabbit hole of, if you're like, I don't think I could go back to ever drinking successfully. And I really have no desire to. And that experience, it just made it was, I don't think I could even have drank it. I think it would be so shocking to my system. It represents, it connected with such a painful time period that I just have no interest. And that's just me. I have no problem being around it. I have no problem watching people, and that was something too. When I first tried, I gotta make changes. I had a lot of anger and bitterness and resentment, and I couldn't be around it. I couldn't watch it being done. I couldn't talk about it. I couldn't, admit that I'm on a break, or I didn't want anyone to know, or that I maybe even had a problem, right? That wouldn't be professional. And, I had to let go of a lot of ego and a lot of things in order to, get success with it. And, but yeah, it's, I've heard that from other people where they've been at a special event. And it's like, okay, it's the toast for their son's wedding or whatever. And they take a drink, and it's like, God, I don't like that anymore, and they did it as a symbol for that event, right? Kind of thing. So, yeah, it's interesting. And I appreciate you sharing that. That's pretty cool. All the way to London,
Yeah.
like for the first drink.
Yeah, for his first beer, yeah. We did, and then we popped over to Ireland for his first Guinness and his first Jameson. So it was cool.
Wow.
It was a cool. I mean, my son, he's a great kid. Yeah, he got such a good head on his shoulders, and he doesn't party, he doesn't go out and do all that stuff. I'm wondering, I'm like, are you really my son? Because this is like, you're a little too good. But yeah, he's well deserving of a trip like that. So
Yeah, it's awesome.
yeah. One thing I find too, and you know, going through this journey is kind of made me step back and kind of look at it from the outside in, and kind of wondering what brought me to this low, like, things that have occurred in my life, or maybe feelings or people, or that gets you to the point of wanting that or chasing that, and I think that's part of it. If you could eliminate those things that bring you to the level to want to
Yeah.
chase something else, that's half
Yep.
the battle, but you look at people with depression and other things that that they stoop down to that low, right? What gets you there? Is it the people you're surrounded with? Is it your environment? Is it your work? Is it, and I I can't help but notice all these things in my life during that period that I eliminated now.
Right.
That has really helped me
Yeah.
stay away from it. Yeah. And I find people's probably the number one. People are very negative, and they really don't want to see you succeed, but they'll pat you on the back, and or nobody wants it's like oh man, you're doing too much. Oh, you need to slow down. Oh man, you need to just go get a 9 to 5. And You gotta stop traveling so much, And I'm like, I can't have that. I can't, that creates more stress. Like, should I? I start thinking, should I slow my lifestyle down? Should I not try to be so ambitious? And I'm
Yeah.
like, that's just who I am. I can't
Yeah.
stop that. That's just how I was built, And I had to eliminate all this noise, all the
Yeah.
noise around me, And if no, they like I go back. If they don't align and they can't see what I see, you're not part of what I'm doing. You're out.
Yeah.
I'm out. I'm not going to mess with you. I just can't,
Yeah. Yeah.
And it keeps me on that steady line and of constant climbing, opposed to coming back down to those low. Oh man, I can't do it. Oh man, it's too hard. Oh man, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe so and so was right. And people don't need that. They need somebody there
Yeah.
supporting them, being like, dude, you got this, man. I got you. Anything you need, I'll help you.
Yeah.
We need more of that. I think people need to be surrounded by people like that more often, because it makes me sick when I hear other people give advice like that. I'm like, dude, shut up. Like, you're potentially ruining somebody's career by telling them not to be ambitious. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the big play for me, that's for sure.
Yeah. It's well, we're a product of what we surround ourselves with, and makes me think of that the forest analogy again. You look at like trees that are unhealthy versus trees that are healthy. Like trees thrive in community and connection, right? And anything that interrupts that, you don't see, trees support one another. They really do, right? I don't think trees aren't really in competition, and they form these communities that complement one another. It's, especially when I see a clump of trees like in a park where you got the edge trees that are, everyone's like, oh, they're trying to grow around and get to the light, and it's like they're totally connected underground. Those are just the outer branches of that tree. It's those 25 trees or 10 trees are one tree, especially if they're the same species, and they're living as one. The guy on the edge isn't bitching that he's bent over from the guy in the middle, and the guy in the middle ain't saying, I'm too skinny. You guys aren't letting me spread out. Like, they don't do that, right? And that's where, that's how we got to be with people and with each other, right? And not everyone has to be the same, but not everyone has, and we all support and grow together in our own ways and shapes and wherever we are. And the ones in the middle are tall and skinny, and the ones in the edge are bent over and kind of leaning out, right? But we're all in it together, right? And if you need a little resource,
Yeah.
here, I got some resource over here. You got branch tore off, here, take some sugars from us.
Yeah. It's a great way to put it. It's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we worry too much too. Everybody worries. I go back to the statistic. It's like 86 or 90% of things we worry about never actually happen.
Yeah.
So when I hear a lot of people speak like that, I'm like, oh man, you're going to live in that percent. You're going to live in that
Yeah.
86% of that. I mean, and what happens if you fail? Like, who cares?
Yeah.
You just go back to, I always say this too. They're like, oh man, Jared, you're nuts. You're doing all this stuff and creating this and starting a new business. I'm like, guess what? If it all fails, I go back to being a tree guy. Guess what? That's what I already am. So, what do I really lose? I lose nothing. I lose nothing, right? And if you do it with a good face and you try your best, then that's all you got.
Yeah, but you can never regret trying your best, right? It doesn't matter what it is, and it doesn't matter how many times you try your best, as long as you're trying your best, right? That's like the story about Babe Ruth and Wayne Gretzky. They took way more shots than way more swings and way more shots than they hit or they scored, and yet they have the record, but they took way more than everybody else.
Yeah. They're I think it's something like Babe Ruth has like X amount of thousands of strikeouts, but nobody remembers the strikeouts. They remember X amount of home runs that he hit, right? Yeah.
That's right.
That's it, man. That's it.
Well, yeah, I think he had one of the highest strikeouts was the thing, right? Like, he struck out more often than not. Like he didn't get walked, right? Like he struck out because fuck, I'm hitting that fucker out of here every time he went up there, right? It's like, dude,
Yeah.
just take a base. Nope, I'm knocking the bastard out of the park every time.
Yeah, every time. All or nothing. All or nothing. Oh, it's so true.
Well, it was
So true.
one of the better pieces of advice that was ever given to me is like, you can worry or you can prepare, but you can't do both. Right.
I love
And
that.
then the other one is in the Stoic tradition, worrying about something excessively is a lot like paying interest on a loan you don't have.
Mm.
Right. It's like, what the hell am I doing? Right. Now,
Yeah.
that's not to say that you can't be concerned or you don't. And we all slip too, right? I think when it comes to worrying about stuff, people expect a perfection from themselves. It's just not possible, right? Some days you're just going to be a mess because everything's on your mind, and that's okay, right?
Yeah.
It goes back, not perfect, not personal, not permanent, right?
And I think there's an element to it, at least for me, and some other people. See what you bounce this off. You guys see what you think, but like having some, we talked about higher power. We haven't mentioned the G word yet, the God word, or I don't know if we mentioned spirituality, but having some type of what the word is, connection or touchstone in that realm, in some type of fourth dimension capacity, for me was necessary in order to let go of those things, to put the trust. Like this, when you mentioned, Jared, about don't worry about those 80%, they don't ever going to happen. It made me think of a lady I know in recovery, and she has what she calls her God can, and it's just an old soup can with the label ripped off. And when she has something that's really bugging her and she's worrying about it, she writes on a piece of paper and she puts it in the can, because I can't, God can, right? So she puts it in her God can, and she'll go back every once in a while and she'll look at it and she's like, holy shit, this thing is like, she doesn't even remember it. Like, and she says virtually nothing in there ever, anything came of it, but it's a way for her to, and this was something recommended to her, right, to do. And she talks about it often. And I thought, what a cool idea, right? Because it symbolically lets her detach from it. She puts it in there and like, okay, I don't need to deal with this. It's in the can.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. I love that.
And if you have, but I think you have to have some kind of belief in something that can actually deal with it for you, and that somehow gives us that breathing room or space. Or I think it did for me. It was something that I also resisted. Like it was something that I had to, I think, accept or acknowledge that there is something greater than me, and that whatever it is able and does care and want to help me. And all I have to do is ask, and it could be anything. Like it could be the river, it could be the moon, it could be, whatever it is. It's like, as I like to say it, or as you often hear said, the God of your own understanding, right?
Yeah. That's great. That's great. Yeah, and understanding, the delivery in that ask, right? And that's, a lot of people misconceive. They ask for something, whatever type of God or whatever you believe in. It could be anything, right? But you ask for,
Yeah.
for example, strength. Guess what? You don't just get strength; you get a bunch more problems to make yourself stronger.
Exactly.
And then you use that to grow and you become stronger. And I look at my life and I'm like, gosh, man, this is exactly how things have gone. And I look back, I'm like, man, I'm 10 times stronger than I was, 2-3 years ago. And all these little things, but being able to recognize that, I think, is part of it. That's for sure. But people give up a lot, and they think, oh man, if I ask, how come I don't get an answer? I'm like, well, you got an answer. It just either wasn't yes, or
Yeah.
he gave you something even harder to figure out. So that's a whole nother rabbit hole of topic. But
Yeah, it wasn't the answer you were looking for. It was the answer you needed.
Well, I've found in my experience when things look bleak or seem to be unmotivated or uninspired, it's because I've lost a sense of awe, right? You just, and I think it's important to cultivate that sense, and however you choose to do it. the first time I realized it was when my daughter was young, right? When you're a parent for the first time and you take the time to see the world through their eyes. And it's like, an ant crawling over a log is cool as shit, and when you look at an ant, you just see it a lot, you've lost that sense of awe, right? Um, and it's not like you can't go through your whole life like that. You won't get anything done, but every once in a while, taking that time to see the world is bigger than you, right? The old Carl Sagan pale blue dot, right? Um, just absolutely phenomenal. Like when you can cultivate that sense of awe. And I know there's things you can do specifically to cultivate that in your life. And I think it makes a big difference. And it's easy to lose it. I think as arborists, we're less likely to lose it because sometimes we just get out in the woods and we get in cool trees and we do cool things. And it's like, this is awesome, right? It's part of our lifestyle to do that. And I've seen it happen to myself. And when I've recognized it now, I'm like, okay, I need to get out. I need to look at the stars or do something, right? Realize just how small I actually am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I,
good.
I think
So
that
good.
comes down to being able to be in the moment and be present, right? Like as a
Mhm.
child, your moments, your periods or moments of being present are longer. There's less distraction. You don't learn distraction, and I think as we get older, we come back to that. They say we start in a diaper and we end in a diaper, right? But though it's learning to, like you talked about it, Jared, where someone they stand up and look at the moon, I think, or was it you, Tony? That like whatever it is, taking a moment, like, and this is something common to tree climbers, I think, for sure. Like most all of us, I think, we can relate to that. Anytime especially when you're getting up in a tough tree and you get up, you get set, you're where you want to be to work the tree. You've got there, you've set up, and there's that moment where it's like, check it out, look at, you notice something through the canopy, a view, a vista, and it's like, wow. And you just take that moment, right? And really, really take it in and appreciate it. It doesn't have to take a long time, but and I think that's something where if you're partying hard the night before, or you got a lot of shit in your worry box that you really don't need, that takes you out of those moments, right? And it's finding ways to get back to that presence.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just bringing awareness to it. I don't know. Like sometimes I wonder if it's just because we're old. Like like, or is this really a thing? Like, could I have done this when I was 20? What do you think?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think I had that in me when I was 20, to be honest. But I think generationally it's different. So I think maybe it is now. I
Yeah,
think it very well could be now. But and
yeah,
maybe because I'm from a different generation, I think we're a little bit more hard, a little bit more stubborn, a little bit more everything. But I think there's more nowadays. People are willing to accept some of that and
yeah.
recognize and see it. So I think it's good we're talking about it. Good for people to at least try it, you know. But and
Yeah,
you gotta use other people's experiences to grow, right? Why have
yeah,
everybody
you
go
got you
through
got to
all of
learn,
our
right? Don't have time to make all the
yeah
mistakes yourself.
yeah
Hey,
I
exactly
think
exactly
it's funny you mentioned your son's 18 now. My sons are a little older than you. Like my oldest is 28, and but it is a different. It does seem to be different. Like they don't, and I don't know if it's just they're my sons or which is ironic because they're not really. They didn't do what I did in the same way. They haven't. They've already reached an age where I was involved with a lot of other nefarious activities at that stage of my life already that they haven't done.
yeah.
And it sounds like your son's the same, right? Isn't that interesting?
Mhm.
Because if it was an example thing, we certainly didn't set that bar.
No, no, not at all. And I think that's what shaped them to do that, is because they could see the things that they dislike. And I look at me compared to my father and a lot of the things he's done. I'm like, I'm never going to be that way. I'm never going to do that. And I think they recognize and seen the things that they really don't like about us, right? And go, I'm never going to do that to my kids. I'm never going to raise my family that way or whatever, right? And I
Yeah,
respect that. I'm like, good on you,
yeah, yeah.
make the change early.
Yeah. Yeah. It could be. And you've got similar experience, Tony, right, with your daughter. I mean, very
The
responsible.
way that I've come to look at it is, it's like when you tell these stories and back in my day you had to pedal the bike kind of stories. I'm doing that, not one because I like telling stories, right? But mostly it's like, I think the one thing that I will credit myself with as a younger person was I saw the signposts for what they were. Those stories are signposts. My path is my path, but the signposts along all of our paths are going to be similar. And some of those signposts I chose to take, some of them I didn't, detriment, and it's fine. It's like, because I often tell people, like, when I just being a second generation arborist, didn't want to be an arborist, really, really tried not to be an arborist very hard. But when I decided, fell back in the industry and fell to it, I told myself, look, I'm going to get paid for what I do with my hands till I'm about 40. And then I'd like to stay in the industry and get paid for what I know. And the reason I did that is my father and his friends, I saw those signposts. I saw people that either physically or mentally broke down, or even worse, they worked in this field. They were convinced it's the only value they had, and they kept doing it physically long after than they probably should have. Just because they didn't see the options, right? They saw them as, all I know how to do is climb a tree, right? Like, you know a lot more. The trees have taught you a lot more. You just have to take the time to do it. So if I was good at anything when I was younger, which wasn't a lot, I was pretty good at a lot of that. But anyway, I was good at their signposts, right? The stories that we tell on this, that we hear on this, that Jared tells, that we all tell, they're signposts for the people that care to listen. And you can read the sign and follow the directions, or you can say, nope. And then you can go the other way. That's fine too. It's your path, right? The problem with children is you raise them to be intelligent and independent, and God damn it, they do it. And then you're not needed anymore. Like, son of a bitch. Now what am I gonna do?
Yeah, I'm at that season of my life with my kids right now, but it's an amazing season. You kind of pave those ways, and I try to put them in front of all the different experiences and let them make those choices and give them a lot of freedom to fail. With the understanding of the consequences that could come with it, and they made their own choice, and I'm proud to see that. You're a product of yourself. Like, you've made all these right choices to become, an athlete, a scholar. He's get the scholarship to go swim at a college. Surround himself by great people and well motivated. He's actually starting his own little business right now as he's going into college, so he can apply as he learns, right? And all these little things that, like, I thought he never listened to me over the years. When I hear him talk about this stuff, I'm like, damn, kid was listening a little bit.
Yeah.
But these are all great things. And having that open mind to me is everything. And just seeing the world from, just take a moment and just push it away from you for a second and look at that big picture.
Yeah.
What does it look like to you? And how are you going to get there? Because that's part of it for me. A lot of it is just, you got to separate from reality for a second and just be able to dream. And I'm a dreamer. Believe me, man, I love to dream. And it's almost like an addiction. Because if it could be created, I'm going to do it. Why not?
Yeah.
So,
we're talking about our kids, and it made me just, while you were sharing about that, I was wondering how much do you feel that your decision to quit the one thing, has that had other positive impacts, not only with your children, but what about your significant other in that relationship? Was there effects and benefits from your decision in that realm? There certainly was for me. I'm curious if it had similar impacts for you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, me and my wife been together 25 years, and she's always known me as the partier. Just at we knew each other in high school. We were friends, and we started dating right after. But that's what she fell in love with, all with that guy. And over the years, it became excessive, and kind of we had lots of problems with that. And I always thought I had it under control. But yeah, I got to the point in life where the kids were young, and it had a major impact on our marriage. And we separated for almost a year during that time because of it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I don't tell a lot of people this, but basically I was homeless for that portion of time. I slept in my car, in my truck. I had my gear. I had a cooler, and
Yeah.
I just nobody knew.
Yeah.
Not one
Yeah.
person knew.
Yeah.
I'd wake up at 4 a.m. I'd hit the gym. I'd get a workout in. I'd shower up. I'd go blast out some trees and go
Yeah.
back to the bar.
Yeah.
And I do that every day. And I thought I didn't have a problem because I'm like, I can function. Like, look at me. This is
Yeah.
great. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just a gypsy on the road. I got everything I need
Exactly.
in this truck. And it's embarrassing, but being transparent with this too is part of my process of not being shamed by it, that I've overcame it. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
now we're the best we've ever been, as a unit, as a family, as a
Yeah.
marriage. And I think there's clear understanding of my intentions of what I want to provide for my family. So I think that's very clear. And helps. Yeah. Oh, sorry about that.
That's hilarious. Sounds like you fired up a Harley Davidson.
Yeah, right behind me. Yeah. But,
I love it. That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
agree 100%. I mean, so I should say it differently. I relate 100%. And the things that's one of the things about, I think, is a sign, and that's something that maybe we can chat a little bit about before we wrap up and it was something Mark called me about. And we did our podcast with Mark Bridge, and he wanted to talk to me afterwards, and he wanted to talk about this stuff, like the kind of stuff we're talking about now. And he thinks that he said he thinks it's important that people understand what happened or what it was like. Like he said, he doesn't realize he can see so clearly now what was happening that at the time he couldn't see, like, and how much he hid, and I related to that too. And like when you're talking about, like, nobody knew, nobody knew. I'm pounding out, working out, I'm doing these trees, I'm back at the bar, like, yeah, I'm good, man, I'm good. Like, and kind of sort of you are good, but deep down you really know you're not. But like, I think it's important that people see that. Like I've had people ask me, like, how did you? I thought I never noticed, man. Like you were really that. You really you became you drank too much. You were an alcoholic, and I'm like, yeah, but I never saw that. Like you came and taught. You did good stuff, and you were teaching, and yeah, I did all that too. Like it's not.
Yeah.
You can't always look at what you're observing isn't always really what you see, and you can't think because you're doing all that that things are okay.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. And I don't know. I
Yeah.
think it's a journey everyone goes on, and realizing, what, just because I never got pulled over, just because I never got fired, just because I never worked while I was drunk, just because I never got a DUI, all these things that we use to justify why it's probably not a problem, right? Because otherwise
Yep.
I wouldn't be able to do all this. That's what I heard in what you were saying, Jared.
Yep. That's it. Exactly. Yeah. And another thing that got me too during that, well, one, I wouldn't have made this decision
Right.
if I never had to go through those moments.
Yep.
So, you got, like I said, you got to hit that low for yourself. And, I seen my kids every day through that time period too. So I'd still go back, still see my kids. And what got me is every time I went back, I'd sit there and, oh man, I was crying just thinking about it. But we'd sit there and cry. We would just sit there and cry together.
Yeah.
And that did it. I was like, I can't live this way. I can't do this.
Yeah.
I gotta have my kids in my life. So that was a change of everything for me.
Yeah. I think that there's something in that when you're right. Everyone has to get there on their own. And it is, what you were talking about earlier about the hardships, like you pray for help or whatever, you ask for, you search for, and then it gets worse before it gets better, kind of thing. Like I've really come to realize, like, the hardships that, however they happen to us, it's like that refining fire, like, and you can't, it's the whole concept of perturbation, that going through extreme heat, pressure, hardship changes you, and you can't take yourself out of it. It's part of the process, but you got to recognize when it's time to make, to leave the pupa, to become the butterfly, and to enter it. And that whole process of change can be very painful, like probably like birth, like, like we don't remember it, but I'm sure it wasn't fun, and exactly, it's like, what's going on here? I'm all soft and warm. This is really great. Now, what the hell?
Exactly.
And it's a journey that each of us is common to each of us, but we each take individually on our own.
Yeah, I just, you want it for so many people, that's the hard part for me. It's just like, gosh, it's such a second life. It's a second life, and I'm like, you get to restart everything with a clean mind, and just, being that example, I think is number one for me, man. I'm going hard on the high side of life this way. And I know people see it. I get a lot of people that have reached out since then, like, "Hey, man, I quit drinking. Hey, man, I'm 1 year, 6 months," and I'm like, "Dude, great job, man." Not because I preached it, just because they see it. I think
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I agree, Jared, 100%. And what I like about our conversation today is, we're at it. It's obvious, to me that we're, in good places, and they're just different paths. And I think, I know that, I'm involved with probably a large fellowship, an anonymous fellowship, and it'll remain unnamed for that reason. And everyone probably can figure out what it is. And it's not for everybody, and it's not the only way. That's the thing I find. It's so easy to make things to get dogmatic or almost religious about things, and you know, it whatever way works, whatever whatever works. I'm a real proponent of that, and I get ridiculed a little bit for it within the fellowship because I'm not dogmatic. I really am careful about that, because you're limiting that spiritual realm that works within us, and that is boundless and powerless, no, powerful. Like it isn't limited by our thoughts and restrictions of what's possible. The fourth dimension is limitless. And I think however you can gain some access to that, it helps us. And I think it's part of it in everybody's journey, that when you realize the pain, I guess, of crying with your children, like there's an emotional spiritual aspect to that you can't deny, and it has an effect, and there's something to that, because it's more than just, obviously it's love, but there's this, it's more than, it's not just, it's not more than a feeling. To quote the song, right? It's more than a feeling.
Truly is. Yeah. I mean, anybody with children, they, you would do anything for them, and that's ultimately comes down to, that feeling of, did I fail? Am I failing my children? And nobody wants to do that, right? And so, yeah. I think, we as tree people or people in the industry, all these stresses and everything that comes along, it's just being able to network with like-minded individuals, and get in front of people better than you, and instead of can inspire you. Like, Dwayne, you Tony, you guys are both great examples of this. Just your instruction and training. I know that a lot of that is inspiring, motivating. And it comes with the instructional side of learning these skills, and that's what people need. They need the soft skills so much more, and to keep them constantly moving and thinking ahead. And it's part of what I do too, and I find a lot of enjoyment out of that, of inspiring individuals.
it's it's one of the in the train the trainer that we still need to circle back someday to figure out how to run one together. But a train the trainer, one of our main lessons is data doesn't matter. It's not what you teach, it's how you teach it. It's how people, they don't remember what you taught, they remember how you made them feel, right? They remember how they connected with you, and it doesn't have to be warm fuzzy weirdness. It's just knowing they care. People don't care what you know until they know that you care, and we try to teach ways to help instructors connect with students to show that, and there's ways that you can do that. And so a lot of people come by it naturally. It's a natural gift, right? And then a trainer, we just try to explain or teach how to use those gifts that some people have naturally, or enhance the ones that you already have. And you obviously are good at that and have that. And there's many others, like Mark Chisholm is another one that comes to mind. People that get asked to speak. A lot of people get asked to speak, but then you get asked to speak again, and then you end up speaking a lot. There's a reason, and it's not about what you're talking about. Really, it's not necessary. It's partly what you're talking about, but it's more about how you're saying it, and the way you come across, and even in your let's call it worst times. You and I both, how many times we spent many a late night in a hotel after the event, and we both had spoken, and like, man, you, me, and Mark one night, it was like till wee hours in the morning, and but we still did a good job there. We still cared and connected with those people, right? Maybe we weren't, if anything, we weren't caring enough about ourselves.
Yeah. Yep. 100%. 1000%. Yeah. It's so good.
And now, we're caring for ourselves as much as other people, maybe. It's part of the change. And our families and everybody else. Yeah, it's interesting.
That's the natural progression.
That sparked my interest, and I took a minute while you were talking. I hope you didn't think I wasn't listening, but I looked up the lyrics to More Than a Feeling. It's pretty wild. That old Boston song, right? And it starts out, I looked out this morning and the sun was gone. Turned on some music to start my day. I lost myself in a familiar song. I closed my eyes and I slipped away. It's more than a feeling when I hear that old song they used to play, and I begin dreaming till I see Marianne walk away. I see my Marianne walking away. Man, I wonder what was going on when he wrote this song, eh?
Yeah,
so many people have come and gone. Their faces fade as the years go by. Yet I still recall as I wander on, as clear as the sun in the summer sky. It's more than a feeling. Wow. Now, when I'm tired and thinking cold, I hide in my music, forget the day, and dream of a girl I used to know. I close my eyes and she slipped away. It's more than a feeling. Wow.
So good. So good.
It's interesting,
So good.
So I don't know if we're allowed, but probably copyrighted, Tony, but we could extra this song with the Boston tune. I think if we use less than 30 seconds, we're okay.
Yeah. I know. My phone's bleeping at me. I got 13%.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you very much for taking time. I know you're busy, and hey, we can't really promote it because this will air afterwards. But good luck on the rigging event. And if anyone's listening that was there, I hope it was a great success. And I want to take your time because I know you're probably up there partly in prep for that and taking some time to enjoy the mountains. So have fun.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you guys for doing this. I appreciate what you guys, everything you've done in our industry in the years. I mean, gosh, it just, I can't tell you thank you enough for everything that you guys do. So, yeah.
Well, you're a gentleman and a scholar and a great climber, and I'm very pleased to know you and happy to consider you a colleague and a peer.
Thanks, guys.